You haven't ever had, just because sometimes we only get what people are searching, which is volume
Yeah,
goes up and down. Have you had any similar to this where the actual physical volume is going up and down, almost like there's a ghost hitting the TV remote? Is that something you've seen, or um, have any recommendations other than maybe flipping out the batteries and things like that of the remote?
that is actually a really great question. So we have with, hold on, let me grab something
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah, yeah, sure.
This is an LG WebOS TV remote. This is
Hmm.
from 2 years ago. I all the remotes are pretty similar for the past decade. If you have one of their mid to higher end TVs, you'll get a little pointer on the screen. That pointer comes because there's a gyroscope in the remote and an accelerometer. It knows where you are,
Nice.
how you're moving it, but it communicates that not through traditional methods of a remote, which uses infrared, IR. It uses Bluetooth. When the batteries start to die, it can press buttons on its own. It can send out false signals. So 100%, any remote that communicates any other method other than infrared, you will certainly see that as a possibility. It's not likely, I wouldn't say, that a faulty remote is the problem. And when it is, it's almost always batteries. Other than batteries, you can try repairing the remote, which
Hmm.
for an LG remote is very simple. It's home and back. Hold down the home button, hold down the back button. Your little power light will start flashing. Point it at the TV and click the center button, which is a little wheel. Sony and Samsung have all done their Bluetooth remotes. Vizio had a Bluetooth remote for a little while. It's been a thing that a lot of companies have tried. Some of them keep it, some of them don't. Samsung's got
Hmm.
that little, we call it the lightsaber remote, because
Uh-huh.
it's very small, very basic. It has a couple of buttons. That
Hmm.
one does communicate over Bluetooth. And any remote, especially the ones that are coming out now, that has a microphone button, has to communicate over Bluetooth.
Hmm.
Therefore, it's got a pairing method. You can Google it, look it up. There's plenty of places on it. We could probably do an article about that, the different
Hmm.
pairing methods. So we can be a great place
Yeah.
for you to come to look for that. But repair it, change the button or change the batteries, and if it still persists and you see the volume level changing on the remote, go on the TV going up and down, the numbers actually change,
Hmm.
that's probably a main board. It could
Right.
be the buttons on the TV itself, but considering that's a daughter board, usually the main board says, "Oh, you've held that down for a long time. We're just going to stop receiving a signal from it." So if a
Hmm.
button gets stuck, it usually just won't listen to that button anymore. Main boards are quite expensive. They're usually about, say, probably 60 to 70% the cost of the panel, which is about
Right.
60%. So it can be about a third of the cost of the TV for a board, or it can be really cheap. Depends on what the quality of the TV is, how much processing power that main board does. We call it a main board rather than a motherboard because it has more on it than with a computer than a motherboard has. The main board
Okay.
is a full system built in or all in one.
Yeah, interesting. Just to sort of touch on, or to wrap up on the remote. So maybe the sort of steps would be, okay, if it is going up and down, you're seeing it going up and down, try taking the batteries out of the remote entirely. And if
Yep.
it you're still seeing that, then it is probably a main board. Maybe look up the TV model number and see how much that might cost versus, check your warranty, things like that.
Say the steps that we'd go through would be if you see the volume number change on your TV, take the batteries out of the remote. If the batteries are out of the remote and it's still going up and down, then unplug the TV, plug the TV back in, get fresh batteries for your remote, and look up the pairing method for your remote. Before going through and looking at a thing to purchase, you should always do as much troubleshooting as possible, starting from the easiest and most cost effective, moving through that. Obviously, everybody has their own value on time versus money. If you value your time way more than you value the cost of it, you can start with the most expensive thing that's the least amount of time. But something like this, you have to look up the part, you have to order it, you have to wait for it to come in, you have to wait for a technician to come out. Because if you value your time, you're not doing the work yourself. But also at that rate, you've also spent a lot of time without the product when you could start with remove the batteries, unplug the TV, fresh new batteries, plug the TV back in. It doesn't really matter what order that goes in, and repair the remote. Google it, look it up, however we need to look it up. Find the method that your remote goes into its pairing mode, do that, pair it back to the TV, see if it persists. If you still see the numbers changing, then it's time to look into the part.